Meditation is often promoted as one of the most beneficial things that you can do for your overall health and well-being. But a lot of people have a number of barriers of entry to meditating. There are certain myths and certain beliefs that they think go along with meditating. Today on the Exercise is Health podcast, we are speaking with meditation expert Josephine Atluri to discuss these myths and break down the barriers that are holding many people back from meditating to begin with. We are going to cue the intro song and then we are going to jump right into this conversation. Welcome to the Exercise is Health podcast, where we're talking about exercise, health, and the interconnectedness of the two. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we will be coming to you every single week from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Exercise is Health podcast. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we are coming to you from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg, here in Schaumburg, Illinois. Now, at Muscle Activation Schaumburg, we believe your health is your most valuable asset, and the single best thing that you can do to both boost and protect this asset is exercise, specifically exercise that's geared towards building the health and function of your muscles. But we know that exercise is not the only piece of the puzzle, and because of this, we are bringing you a phenomenal guest today, none other than meditation expert Josephine Atluri. Josephine, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to our show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, we are very excited as well. So tell us more about yourself and kind of how you got into meditation.
Yep. So I like to say that I got into meditation because of my children. I have 5 and I needed to be the calm that amid the chaos of my life. I actually lovingly call my house, you know how some houses, like bigger estates, have names. And so I call mine the Casa de Calm con Chaos. Well, we live in Los Angeles, so everything's in Spanish, but essentially it's the house of calm within the chaos. So I was actually in wellness prior to meditation. I was trying to come up with sort of total wellness where I was working. And I was pitching the idea of meditation as part of the package because I was feeling myself that I was missing something. I was focused on nutrition and fitness, but not the mind aspect of it. And I signed myself up for a course thinking that I would implement it at this gym, and that didn't necessarily work out. I ended up not working at the gym anymore and decided, oh, I signed up for this course. I'm just going to take it. And I thought just for my own personal benefit, and I loved it so much. It was such a game changer for me, this teacher training course, that I knew that I had to just share it with the world, that it was my passion to help people deal with adversity in their lives and to be able to claim their joy by tapping within. By tapping into the silence and the stillness that we have within, you get clarity and are able to do so. And so that, started off with doing corporate meditations because my background is in consulting. That's what I was doing at the gym. And that worked out great. And I still do that actually. But as I was diving deeper, I realized that having meditation would have been so awesome back when I was trying to conceive my family, because I didn't have the tools to help me manage all the trauma of trying to conceive. This is how I call it. And it was very lonely. It was very frustrating and very sad. And if I had the tools to sort of step in within, I think I could have managed the situation better, but that's hindsight, right? So I decided to pair my background in infertility, and pair that with my meditation teaching. And that's how I do a lot of fertility mindfulness coaching and classes, and also leading that, once you are a mom or a parent, moving that into being a mindful parent and doing work there. That's in a quick nutshell how I got into all of this and how I'm here speaking with both of you today.
That's awesome. I love that story because it's the perfect blend of it kind of happened on accident, but maybe it's not such an accident. And then I love that you paired it with an experience that you had And now you're using it to help individuals with managing this very stressful situation of infertility or parenting. Charlie and I are parents of a 2-year-old, almost 2-year-old. And so we can definitely relate to keeping the calm and learning that, wow, parenting is so much easier if you can stay calm, even through all the ups and downs of everything going on around you. I wanted to kick off with a question. What do you think, or what would you describe meditation to be? I think everyone has like a picture that pops in their head, but what's yours?
I love that question. I don't think actually in all the times that I've been thinking, I don't think anyone has ever flat out asked me what is meditation. It's always sort of assumed that everyone knows, but that's not the case, right? So I like to define meditation as being, tapping into one's mindfulness. And essentially what it comes down to is being aware. So being present in the moment and without judgment, without judging yourself about how it's going. And you can be aware of many things. You can be aware of yourself. So how your body is feeling, how your breath is moving throughout you. You can be aware of your surroundings. So what's happening in nature or your household. Or you can be aware of other people that you're interacting with, which is how it comes into play with being, with my mindfulness parenting coaching, because it is talking about being aware of your interactions and relationships. So, at the heart of it is just being present, and requires some stillness and some silence for you to tap into it and be able to have that clarity. Because in the world that we live in, it's just very overwhelming. There's so many things coming at us, not just with work and people in our lives, but also with all the media and all the things that we're exposed to. So it creates a lot of noise in our head. So I like to say that to meditate and be mindful is really just having that almost listening. It's like you're being aware, but you're really listening to what's happening inside of you.
I really like that. And what I like about it is it also relates to your story and your personal reason for getting into meditation. And I think this is a misconception that a lot of people have about meditation. What I'm picking up from your story, what I'm picking up from that response is meditation it's an act, but it's something that carries over into multiple parts of your day, because not only it's an act, but it's also a training. Meaning you are not only doing the meditation, but you are also teaching yourself how to be mindful, how to be present. And then you carry that into other aspects of your life, other aspects of your day. And I think a misconception that a lot of people have is that, okay, they're going to meditate, and then whatever feeling or whatever they get from that meditation, then that's the thing that kind of lasts the rest of the day. And for me, I mean, I'm going on close to 1,800 consecutive days of meditating now using the Headspace app. And so I've quickly realized that meditation, yeah, it might last at 10 minutes, but at least one of the big benefits I've found is then being able to come back to that skill throughout the day and regain the mindfulness and regain the presence. Can you speak to that a little bit about this kind of misconception I think a lot of people have, or am I off about that? What's your perception? Do you run into that as well, that people think, oh, I'm going to meditate for the morning and then I'm good for the rest of the day?
First, I want to say kudos to you for your consecutive meditation.
Thank you.
That is amazing, and I love it. And I mean, I'm sure it's changed your life. So that's awesome. And you had to recognize that. And then I love the way you put it. Yes, some people think that it's supposed to be like this cure-all. If you're able to get yourself to do it, that it sort of magically wipes away any stress and everything. But much like everything else, I like to compare it to learning a new language or a new sport. And so what's happening is when you start something like meditation or a sport, you're starting to create a new pathway in your brain. And it's not something you have before, but the more and more you do it, the more and more that pathway becomes stronger and you're better able to access the calm. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the calm has washed over your entire brain. It's just more about being able to access it quicker and to be able to utilize those tools. But that requires the practice. And just like with a language, I learned Spanish a long time ago, but that doesn't mean that because I don't practice it, it's a little harder. And so when I try to speak it, it takes some pause for me to like dig it up because that pathway isn't quite as fresh. And I'll give an example of how even with a meditation teacher, it still requires you to be mindful, actually, funny enough, to be aware of what you're learning to be able to use it. So right after I meditate, I'm feeling good. You have that sort of that meditation calmness that's washed over you. It feels great. All of a sudden, my 14-year-old comes over and demands something. And I instantly, because of, our interactions from before, like what will happen is you'll instinctively react and you're going off of things that have happened in the past versus like trying to be calm. But it takes that moment of pause to remember all the things that you've been working on with meditation, with mindfulness, to be able to just hit that pause button really quick so that you can respond better and respond from a place of that calmness that you just cultivated versus going instinctively to that reactionary mode of being stressed and being triggered. But it takes that moment of pause. But the beauty of meditating and practicing is that it gives you that awareness to do that pause so that you can dip into the right bucket.
Yeah, I like that.
I definitely can understand what you're saying in terms of that it's a practice, and it's something that's developing all the time. And I think, as what Charlie was saying, one thing that we hear pushback from when we're like, hey, you seem really stressed. Have you tried, some meditation? Usually one of the biggest things that we hear is, well, I'm just too busy and my brain is like, my brain, it's like crazy. It's always going. I can't meditate. I'm not like a meditate person. Do you ever hear that from your clients or from people that you talk to? It's like, well, Josephine, you can meditate because you're so calm and, you're able to be still. But, I wouldn't be able to do that. Do you encounter that quite a bit?
Okay, so I'm laughing in the background. I'm not trying to laugh into the microphone so I wouldn't mess up the sound, but I was smiling because I'm raising my hand because that was me. I said that to my friend way back when, before I even started meditating. We were on a hike and I'm telling her about how stressed I am, and she's a meditator herself. She was using Headspace, I think. And she insisted that I try it. And my response, I remember to this day because we laugh about it now, but I remember myself saying, I can't do that. I cannot shut my mind off. Do you know how type A I am? And there is absolutely no way. I'm like covered in post-it notes usually. I have a clipboard. You see this clipboard about like my life and the things to do. There's no way I can stop to meditate. And I always bring up that example because I was able to do it. So I decided, okay, fine, she's not going to stop bugging me. So I'll try Headspace. I did that myself. And I started very small, and it was a minute or 2 minutes and then gradually building up. But in that time, it was just like it was beautiful and life-changing because I never took a moment to really just sit with myself. I would always exercise. I would avidly do that every day without fail. And I thought to myself, well, that's my me time, which it still is. But that's like for me meditation, which I hear often. And it's not, but it can be a meditative experience. But this was the first time where I wasn't actually doing anything. And I had to sit there and just listen to myself and be there and witness what's happening. And you can do it. It's helpful to have the tools to help you out, especially if you know that you're coming from a place where you feel like you can't do it. That's why I love that there's so many different apps and online courses and different things like that out there to help you sort of get a jump start, because that will guide you. And that way you'll see that you're not shutting off your mind. My guru, my teacher who I learned from is David G. And he said that you have between 60,000 to 70,000 thoughts a day. So the idea that you're going to turn that off is insane. You're not going to, but rather it's like a dance. You're dancing, you're learning how to dance with the thoughts in your mind. And you'll sit in that meditation and you'll start to sort of quiet it and you're focused on something like your breath. And then all of a sudden you remember, oh my God, I have to add that to the grocery list. And it's ruined and you feel like you're judging yourself and you feel like, oh, I failed. I suck at this. I can't do it. But you just allow the thought to be. People always have a hard time with this. Like, how do I allow the thought to be? So you almost have like a conversation where you acknowledge the thought and say, okay, I have to add that to the grocery list, but I can do that after I'm done with this, after I'm taking care of myself, prioritizing myself, nourishing myself. I can do it later. And for people who are visual, I like to tell them, imagine yourself putting on a cloud that thought, that grocery list thought, and then pushing it away. But for me, I prefer just talking to myself. I really perfected my self-talk. And so I'll just say that to myself. I can do that later. And then I go back to whatever my point of focus was, which is my breath or a mantra, whatever it may be. And I go back to that. But it's going to keep happening. I always tell her, here's a sort of, this is what's going to happen is that it will be up and down. It'll just be an up and down or a dance of the thoughts with the silence. And knowing that, I think helps a lot of people because then you're able to keep going back to it. Because if you feel like my mind is supposed to be empty, then you feel like you failed and you can't do it. But that's not the case because you will have thoughts. And over time, you'll just get better at being able to maybe not have the thoughts as much or being able to send them away quicker and returning back to your point of focus.
Yeah, Josephine, that's such a great point because I think you're right on that. A lot of people think they are either good at meditation or they're bad at meditation, right? Like it's an either or. And I think the point isn't necessarily to be good at meditation. The point is to do the meditating. The point is to do the practice of it, to try to get better at it. It doesn't really matter whether you're good or not right now. What matters is that you're trying it, you are practicing it, and then you're able to take that skill and apply it. It's kind of like saying, well, I'm not going to ever run because, I can't run a 5-minute mile. It's like, what? That doesn't make sense. Like, the point of running is not to run a 5-minute mile. It's to, do the running, to challenge your body, whatever. But the point of meditation is not necessarily to have a silent mind, but to practice the attempt or the pursuit of, like you're saying, kind of dancing with your thoughts. And I think that makes a lot of people uncomfortable because there are a lot of thoughts going through people's heads. And I think a lot of times they're just more comfortable with, okay, there's so many thoughts racing around. I don't want to stop and acknowledge any of them. So I think the acknowledgement of them can be rather uncomfortable for people.
I love that you bring that up because it does speak to the point that it requires some courage, honestly. And I've never actually had a conversation. This is great. I've never had a conversation with anyone about how it really takes courage. And I think I can speak to that because recently I haven't wanted to because my mother passed away and I didn't want to sit with my thoughts. But there were times when I knew in the back of my mind, this is good for me. I need to do this. And I would do it, but it required some bravery. And just for, everyday life, there are a lot of things that people don't want to confront in their minds because we oftentimes have this inner critic about how we're doing things, how we're going through life. And that voice, I think, can get sort of magnified when you're just sitting in that silence. So I think that is definitely a barrier to entry. But having that courage to take the leap into that silence and into that listening of yourself, I think would open up so many of the things that are going on that you're avoiding. And it's just a great place to start and heal and sort of help other parts of your life and relationships. But it does take courage. in addition to patience. So, and there are a lot of things that come with it, but a lot of benefits that definitely come forth from doing it.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, as you were saying that, I was thinking, I think normally we think of, when people that meditate, they're able to cultivate, this sense of calm, just from, again, what we were talking about, practicing letting thoughts go. But it's funny, like Charlie said it, and then you brought it up, and I was thinking our brains were all going in the same direction. I was thinking, wow, when people have stressors, there are so many of us that I feel really get caught up in those stressors. We make it such an integral part of our life. And I love that you brought up, it takes so much courage to sit. And if you're going to sit and you have these stressors, it's likely those thoughts will come up in your brain, and then that practice of saying, I can worry about that later. I can think about that later. But in more of a general idea, what are some normal or common benefits, whether that is behaviors in life or health benefits, that you see a lot of your clients gaining when they start the practice of meditation? And again, I want to remind our listeners, we're not saying that doesn't mean you're good at meditating, but you're just starting to practice it. What are some normal things that you hear people saying, wow, this is changing, or this is changing, or that's changing?
I love that question. And before I answer it, because I feel like I'm going to forget, to your point about thoughts and sort of them coming up and associating to it. One thing that I love to tell people is that you are not your thoughts. So as scary as they may be, like as you're sitting, like you're saying, with the stressors of life that can be overwhelming and scary, just knowing that in the back of your mind, that you are not those thoughts that you're having. So if you're having these sort of inner critic thoughts, that's not you. It's just your voice telling you that. And being able to sit and have that courage within to just keep saying that to yourself so that you can continue to do it and come back and have that moment. But to your question about benefits that I've heard clients talk about with starting to meditate. I recently ran a 7-day meditation challenge, and I loved it and it was just 5 minutes a day. All I asked people to do was listen to my meditations. They were 5 minutes long, and that was enough for them to see benefits. So one of them sent me, she does a sleep app because she has a hard time sleeping. She would do it right before bed, and she improved her sleep quality. She showed me the app and it was amazing. She improved her sleep quality. She was able to get to bed better. So that's definitely one of the benefits. The immediate ones are things like, when you are in a fight or flight mode, your heart starts to beat faster. That's your blood pressure. And you can reduce your blood pressure by decreasing your reaction to stress through meditation, because you're using techniques like breathing techniques to calm your body and instantly move from that fight or flight state into the rest and digest state. So other things that get improved are your focus and your ability to be productive and to interact with people. And then it also helps then with things like your weight and your heart and your immunity. Because when you're stressed, when you're in a constant state of stress, what happens is that a lot of your internal systems start to shut down because it's prioritizing your survival. And it doesn't need your things like your reproductive system or your immune system to be fired on and working, because it's trying to make you survive. But the body nowadays will think of an email as being stressful, as something that's life-threatening, and will put you into that fight or flight or stressful mode. And so things, without you even realizing, are shutting down. So your digestive system, your immune system, your reproductive system, all of those things sort of take a back seat so that you can survive and fight off whatever the stressor is. So if you're able to move yourself out of that fight or flight that we are so constantly in, and move into there's a reason it's called rest and digest, because suddenly your digestive system starts to work again. So if you can move yourself using meditation and mindfulness to be calm and move yourself into rest and digest, then you will get benefits of like increased immunity, assistance with like digestive system or disorders that you may be having, reproductive issues, because those things will now start working properly. So that's kind of like nerdy thing of like what's happening in your brain and how it works throughout your body. But so many different benefits that come with being mindful and meditating just a few minutes a day.
Now, it's so interesting that you bring up that time perspective, because I feel like that is another misconception that people have about meditation, that it's something that they're going to have to do for an hour at a time when they do it. But, I've heard you mention a few different times now, doing it for 1 minute, doing it for a few minutes, doing it for 5 minutes. So can you talk to us about that, about like the time component for meditation? And, clearly by your examples, it's not necessary to do, 30 minutes or 60 minutes, but people can clearly see benefits doing, 60 seconds to 5 minutes. Can you talk about your experience in that regard?
Yeah. So you're right. People think, oh, I can't do it because I have to do it for an hour or 30 minutes. I just don't have time to invest in that. But I keep telling people that just a few minutes a day is all it takes, for the reason that you are building that pathway and you're able to practice accessing that calm better. And in doing so, you're able to move yourself from a state of stress into that state of calm and rest and digest. Yes, there are definitely studies where meditating for at least 20 minutes a day, every day, shrinks like your amygdala and other parts of your brain and increases brain matter in like your creative area and all that stuff. So yes, there is benefit to doing it longer, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there are no benefits to doing it for 3 or 5 minutes a day, because there are, which we've discussed. I always try to encourage people to start off with 3 minutes and then work your way from there, and you will start to see benefits. You'll start to see benefits in how you're interacting with other people and how you're able to deal with little triggers in your life, because now you're incorporating things like either using a mantra, an affirmation like I am calm or I am grateful for, using gratitude, or you're going to use a breathing technique, which you'll learn in meditation, and use that like constantly throughout the day, not just in a meditation, when you're interacting with other people. So it definitely trickles out to all the many different parts of your life just by doing it for a few minutes a day.
That's awesome.
Okay, I think this is going to be a big question. Is it necessary? And if it's not, then can you talk to us about the benefits of using this stuff, of using all the accessories of meditation? And let me tell you what I'm talking about when I mean accessories. I'm talking about the gong, the incense, the oils people rubbing on themselves, the mantra, which I don't even know if our listeners know what that means.
The beads.
The scarf, the block thing you sit on, a meditation corner. Talk to us about the meditation accessories. It's almost like the culture of meditation, I think can get kind of intimidating. Do you need those things? But then also, where do those come into play, and what are the benefits of using those type of accessory? I guess you can rename it, but I'm calling it the accessories or the stuff of meditation.
First, can I answer the question about the mantra? Because you're right. Not a lot of people know, and we're throwing that word around. So mantra basically comes down to a mind vehicle. Like in Sanskrit, that's what it translates to. When you think of words, it's a vehicle for your mind to stay in the present moment, right? So it could be something like an affirmation like, I am calm, or it can be a gratitude. I'm grateful for my family, or it can be something else. It can be just foreign words, or it can be just something else. My favorite introductory one is be here now. So I'll say that. It's on my business card. Be here now. Just be present. So back to your question then about all the gadgets and all the frou-frou stuff. You don't need it. All you need is a quiet space. And I am sort of the walking, living example of that, because I will meditate. I ran a segment pre-COVID called Carpool Meditation, because as soon as I dropped off all my kids, I would hop into the backseat of my minivan parked on the street, a metered street, and meditate there for 20 minutes once all the kids were gone. And so that's just living proof that you don't have to be anywhere. And I didn't have anything. I had my app because I wanted music, but sometimes I didn't, and it'd be silence. But you didn't need all the essential oils. I did not need the cushion. I did not need, the water fountain in the background. I mean, it's all beautiful. And listen, if it helps you and it pushes you to meditate because you're creating a space and it's fun for you, then by all means go for it. Because anything that helps you do something and make something turn into habit, then if you need that, then do it because you want some sort of buy-in and you want to make it exciting and fun for you. And so if you need those things, great. I mean, there are definite benefits to essential oils and how it will trigger certain senses and relates to different things, moods that you want to feel, and then crystals, different energies that come from it. I mean, we can go on and on about it, but if you're just trying to get into it and you're on the fence if you want to do it or not, then I would lean towards don't do anything, like buy anything aside from maybe an app or some online like meditations that you find on YouTube, like I have, but you don't need all the other things. With the cushion, that's only if you decide to sit and you have back issues. That really supports that lumbar system and really helps you. The problem with slouching is when you slouch, you close off your chest. But what you want to do is you want to open up. And so that when you're breathing, you're really breathing in and getting all that oxygen and triggering that brain function, switching over to the resting system. So that's the problem with sort of scrunching up, which is why I often like to tell people to lie down when they're meditating and have their arms outstretched like a T, because it really opens up that chest. And I, for one, when I get stressed out, I start to sort of curl up and everything gets tight. That's how I start to notice things. And so if you open up, you're really getting that breath in and you're really sort of opening yourself up to the meditation. But that just required the floor because you were just lying down on the floor or your bed or what have you. So, you can use all those things and they're fun. And I, of course, have them, but you don't need them.
I love that. And I love that in a large part because I think one of the reasons why I was hesitant to start meditating in the first place was because I felt like it was super uncomfortable to sit cross-legged on the floor. And I thought if I'm going to meditate, I need to sit cross-legged on the floor because the only time I'd ever seen people meditating was when they were sitting cross-legged on the floor. So I thought like that came with the territory, right? So what I'm hearing from you though is you don't have to do that. You can be seated in a chair. You can be lying on the floor. You can find whatever comfortable position
in your minivan.
Yeah, whatever comfortable position you have, you can do your meditation there. It doesn't require you to be, again, sitting cross-legged on the floor. However you envision somebody meditating for hours on hours, you don't have to do that.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm all about breaking down the barriers when I speak to people who are on the fence and are deciding if they want to do it. Break down as many barriers and excuses as possible. So, you don't have the excuse of, I don't have the tools, I don't have the space. You do, you have your bed, you can do it there, or I meditate now during COVID, I meditate and hide in the bathroom because, people will leave me alone, supposedly. So yeah, it can be done anywhere.
So Josephine, right now with your work, I know you brought up your journey with infertility and that's really attracted you to that community and using meditation and mindfulness within that community. Is that most of your work? Are you working mostly with parents and what is your main focus right now?
Yeah, the main focus right now is the infertility community and parents. I just finished writing up a book it's a mindful parenting journal. It should be out in a couple months. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, it's pretty much infertility and parenting. I'm still doing corporates and I still take one-on-one meditations with the general public, but that's sort of, where I'm skewing towards. It's a lot of work that can be done there. And it's kind of new, this whole fertility mindfulness thing. A lot of people have bought into acupuncture and things like that because of recommendations from the doctors. And so what's starting to come into play now is how you take care of your mental well-being. And one definite way of doing that, not just through fertility coaching and fertility therapy, but also is just this act of mindfulness and learning the tools for that. So it's just a great place to be because it's so close to my heart. And, I love being able to impart those tools to these men and women who are struggling to conceive their families.
I'd love for you to talk more about those two groups of people. We have people that are working through infertility, and then also you mentioned the mindful parenting. What are some unique things that you work with within these populations, or unique issues or problems that are common to come up? And then additionally, the benefits that people see when they find themselves in these categories.
Yeah, one of the big things, at least with the fertility community, is this lack of control. When you're going through it, as I did for like over 14 years, you don't have much control over many things. You're at the mercy of science and your diagnosis, what's happening with your body, your partner's body. And so you start to feel like there's nothing left for you to do. It is a tough position to be in, and it diminishes your self-worth, and just you start to go into a spiral of negativity. But what I like to remind people is that you do have control over certain things. Primarily, you have control over your breath and your mindset. And those all come into play from practicing these mindfulness and meditation tools, because it's quite powerful, even though you don't have control over what medicines you're taking or what procedure you need to do and how often you need to do it. But going through this really frustrating process, having control of your mindset and your breath will help you through all those ups and downs and all of the challenges of living in that season of your life, because you're able to better manage all the triggers coming at you and all the challenges and stress that comes with it. Not to say that you'll be super calm and super happy as you go along, but at least you're able to manage with these tools how you're responding to those situations. So that's probably the biggest reason that I like to talk about fertility mindfulness within these groups, is to help women and men feel empowered. And that's actually, how I named my workshop, Empowering Your Fertility Journey with Mindfulness, taking that power back for yourself in the ways that you can and not feel like you have no control over anything. And then in terms of mindful parenting and a lot of the things that I talk about in the book, is that it is also another area where you feel like it's hard to control, because you have children who they're not able to communicate their feelings very well. And we have all these sort of preconceived notions of how we want to raise our children and how the experience should be. And so we come into this new relationship with all those things. And I don't want to call it baggage, but it's things from our past and things that we're hopeful for. And being mindful as a parent really allows you to first be aware of yourself as how you're coming into this relationship and what are you bringing into it. And then it allows you to then be empathetic and have this conscious communication with your child, because you're bringing in awareness, you're bringing in empathy, you're bringing compassion, and you're learning how to use all of these tools to interact with your child and also embody that so that they know the tools to use when they start to feel these really big emotions, because they see you doing it as you interact with them. With household from 5-year-olds to a 14-year-old, I get the whole spectrum of how this works with those age groups. And so that's also why, I had to do fertility, but I also had to do the parenting piece of it, because it's so necessary as a parent, but also as a child, because it's also being taught a lot at schools now, which is great. But those would be the two big things that I speak to in those different groups, to answer your question.
Yeah, I know that as we raise our toddler, Julie from the get-go was really into the idea of mindful parenting, and I had never heard of it before. So she has kind of really helped coach me through it. But to come back to your point, I felt like having a meditation practice that I could carry throughout my day, that helped me so much when trying to implement just, being present with our daughter, and when she's experiencing something emotionally, just being able to be there with her. So I can see how effective, the work that you're doing combining the two really would be, because, I don't have any formal training in it, but from, how Julie's coached me on the mindful parenting aspect, and then just so the work that I've done my own, with my own meditation, I can see that, wow, yeah, if you get good at this can be really powerful. So I bet you're seeing really neat results with that.
Yeah, no, I definitely am, because, when situations happen now, like I described before, um, you're no longer reactive. You're able to be present in that moment, see it for what it is, see, almost from like you're watching the situation as it unfolds, and then understanding where that other person's coming from without judgment, without bias, and understand then how you should respond to that person, to that situation, without really getting so caught up into it as we commonly do. And it's funny, almost after you get really into mindfulness and start to use it often, you'll almost be in that moment. Say your child is having a tantrum. And I remember feeling like the words that my child was saying to me, it was just like washing over me. I was like, it was flowing. I saw it flowing over me. I was trying to be visual, and I wasn't responding the way or reacting the way I was normally, which was a shocker to my child, which allowed that child to just sort of take pause themselves and calm down and be like, why isn't she doing what I expected her to do? So it threw them off and made them stop. And it was great because then we were able to have like an actual conversation, what was really happening, what was the root of this problem, and how we could come together, work together to come up with a solution. And it was all because I sort of bit my tongue and I just allowed it to flow over me. But that took practice because it required me to be aware of the present moment and know that this was what was happening and how I was going to respond. And that's just the benefit of putting in those 3 minutes a day, as long as you do it every day, so that you can pull it out when you need to.
Yeah.
I love it. And now that I'm thinking about this, is probably some sort of like mantra that I create is when I feel out of control with my daughter, and she's experiencing something that I clearly can't control because, she has to experience this emotion, is I sing to her so much, and I will make up songs that elude the energy that I want her to be feeling from me. And it not only acts as like a soother for her, but then it soothes me because I'm reminding myself, I'm here. Like just the other day, I don't even remember the song because I was like, man, she liked that. I should remember it, and sing it to her next time. But I remember saying like, I'm here to listen. I'm listening. I don't know. It was some song. But anyways, it almost became a little mantra that we worked through for like 30 minutes while she was experiencing her thing and me trying to stay present. So, that's one way that I use like my mindfulness, I think, more through words. And I love that you brought up the visual piece, because maybe I'll try that next time.
Yeah, no, I love that you use that to sort of soothe her, but also validate what she was feeling and then being able to be open to her expressing it. So it's such a great way. It is hard. I mean, I'll be honest about that. It's hard to stop how you instinctively want to react to your child in the moment. And it's difficult in the beginning because I like to describe it as, my child did not get the memo that I'm trying to start over and be mindful. So I don't want to go that same route before. I'm always laughing with my husband. I'm like, I don't think that one got the memo that I'm trying to be better about this because they're not cooperating right now. So there is a little bit of a hurdle in the beginning when they're trying to get used to like how you're changing your ways of how you respond to them. But eventually they're quick. They adapt so quickly and so well, as the case was we've seen with COVID, that once they start to pick up on your new sort of responses, they're able to go with that. And it's great because then they start to use it themselves.
What would be one or two really simple like action things that someone could implement today after they listen to this podcast and they're not driving that they could implement today to start receiving some of the benefits that meditation can create in someone's life?
Yeah, my biggest go-to that I like to coach people on is using a breathing technique. because it's something that, yes, you can use in a meditation, but it's also something that you can use in everyday life without having to close your eyes, without having to go to that space, and use it in the heat of the moment when you are feeling stressed out and triggered. So an easy one is something called the box breath, which is a 16-second count, or it can be longer, but 16 seconds is usually how it goes. So it's 4 seconds of breathing in, then 4 seconds pausing and holding your breath, then 4 seconds exhaling, and then 4 seconds holding your breath. And it makes a box. And you just repeat that for as long as you need. And I find myself doing it, when the kids are having their big feelings and they need to express themselves. And I don't want to get triggered. I do not want to get pulled into that. So I'll start doing the breathing because it counteracts what's happening. And it lets me be in that sort of balance mode. And so it's great. So you can do that now. And if you want to, like, even as we're speaking, the listeners can give it a shot while we're talking to just try that pattern. And you'll start to see that the beauty is when you're focused on that pattern, when you're focused on that breath, whatever it is that you're doing, it's really hard to think about anything else. It's hard to think about, oh, that person at work who sort of was irritating and stressed me out. You can't think about that because you're counting and you're also hopefully witnessing how that breath is moving in and out of your body. And just by taking yourself away from that stressful moment, you're giving yourself some calm. You're decreasing those reactions in your body to that stress. So that is a quick way of doing it. And to remind yourself to do it, I always like setting reminders on my phone, especially if you're starting to try meditation or mindfulness, or if you don't want to set a reminder on your phone. A great way to do it is to tag it on to an existing ritual, because that's something that you're automatically going to do. That's the beauty of establishing habits that become automatic. You'll never skip out on them. So if you tie it on to something like that, then you have greater chances of success. So if you brush your teeth in the morning, let's hope you do, then remember to do that breathing technique with it, either right before or right after. And because you're always going to brush your teeth, then you're always going to do this breathing technique. And then by 60 days, you're just doing it. And then you can sort of evolve it and grow it and go from there. But you've established it now as something that you're always going to do. So those would be like the two tips. They're kind of combined together, but that is how to do that breathing technique and also how to establish it into your routine.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Now, Josephine, where can people learn more about you? Where can they connect with you? Where they can enroll in your services or in one of your challenges? What are the ways that people can connect with you?
Yep, there are many. Instagram, you can find me at Josephine Atluri. I always have like daily inspiration tips on there. And actually on my IGTV, I have some meditations that you can follow. That's where I hosted that most recent 7-day meditation challenge. And I do have meditations that are free on YouTube. So just type in Josephine Atluri meditation. My website is jatluri.com, where you can book private sessions. You can sign up for my course. Hopefully in a couple months, you'll be able to purchase my book there or on Amazon. And I also have the podcast, which you had mentioned before, called Responding to Life, where I talk about health, fertility, and parenthood as it relates to people overcoming challenges and how they're able to be mindful in those challenging situations. So those are the many ways. I hope everyone can connect with me in some way. I appreciate you offering the opportunity to talk about them.
Yeah, you bet. Absolutely. So, Josephine, the question that we like wrapping up with for all of our guests is, what is your definition of health?
Oh, that's great. I love that question. You guys gave me some really good questions today. I love it. My definition of health would be to take care of the different aspects of your well-being. So that is physical, that's emotional, it's mental, and to be able to every day try to work on those things and to improve upon those things. So that would be health for me if I was tying it into being mindful and aware. And it all comes down to, again, being aware of what you need. And that ties into mindfulness. So that way you know how to work on what you need in that moment for this optimal health.
That's fantastic. Well, Josephine, thank you so much for sharing your time, for sharing your expertise with us. We really, really appreciate it.
It was so great speaking to both of you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Hey there, it's Charlie again. One last thing. I want to let you in on a secret project that I've been working on for quite some time now. I am planning on releasing a book by the middle of summer 2021. But here's the thing, because I'm self-publishing this book, there's only going to be a limited number of copies available at any given time. So to learn more about this book and to be one of the first to find out when this book actually gets released, what I need you to do is go to exerciseforlifemethod.com. There you'll find out more information as well as some exclusive bonuses that I'm offering just for simply staying in the loop with what's going on with this book. So to learn more and claim your bonuses, go to exerciseforlifemethod.com, enter in your information, and you'll be automatically kept up to date. Learn all about the book and bonuses at exerciseforlifemethod.com. This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Gates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.